Kowalski advanced through the simulation area with the calculated aggression of a seasoned warrior who had faced death in a dozen countries and emerged victorious every time. His rifle remained ready while his eyes swept constantly for any sign of movement. The elimination of his team had earned his opponent genuine respect, but it had also triggered the competitive instincts that had kept him alive through 2 decades of special operations. Sarah observed his approach from a position that violated every assumption about concealment that conventional military training provided. She had learned from masters who understood that the human eye was programmed to recognize certain patterns and shapes, and that true invisibility came from breaking those expectations rather than simply hiding behind cover. The final 6 seconds of the 79-second engagement began when Kowalski passed within striking distance of Sarah's position. She had positioned herself in plain sight, but in a location where the human mind would dismiss her presence as part of the environment. The technique required absolute stillness and precise timing, but it allowed her to control the moment of contact completely. Sarah's attack began with a move that seemed to defy physics as she flowed from perfect stillness into explosive motion without any visible transition. Her approach targeted Kowalski's weapon first, using leverage and timing to strip away his primary advantage before he could bring it to bear. The rifle clattered across the concrete floor as Sarah followed through with a combination that demonstrated the difference between fighting to win points and fighting to end confrontations. Kowalski's response showed why he had survived so many genuine combat situations. Instead of trying to recover his weapon or maintain distance, he immediately closed with Sarah and attempted to use his size and strength advantages in a grappling exchange. His strategy was tactically sound, but it required him to engage in exactly the type of combat where Sarah's unconventional training provided maximum advantage. The hand-to-hand exchange that followed lasted less than 4 seconds, but contained a level of technical complexity that would have impressed masters of several different fighting disciplines. Sarah moved like water around Kowalski's attacks, redirecting his strength while simultaneously targeting pressure points and leverage positions that would disable him without causing permanent harm. Kowalski found himself fighting an opponent who seemed to anticipate his moves before he made them. Every attempt to use his size advantage was turned against him through techniques that used his own momentum and strength as weapons. Sarah's approach combined elements of traditional martial arts with modern close combat methods, creating a fighting style that was both beautiful and devastatingly effective. The team leader's experience allowed him to recognize that he was outclassed, but his pride demanded that he continue fighting until the situation was completely resolved. He attempted a wrestling takedown that would have worked against most opponents, only to find himself controlled and positioned for a submission hold that threatened immediate unconsciousness. "Yield," Sarah said quietly, her voice calm despite the intensity of the physical exchange. "You fought well, Sergeant." Kowalski felt the pressure on his carotid artery and recognized the professionalism in Sarah's application of the hold. She had complete control, but was offering him the opportunity to submit rather than forcing unconsciousness. His military training emphasized tactical flexibility, and he recognized when continued resistance served no useful purpose. "I yield," he replied, his voice carrying genuine respect along with acknowledgement of defeat. Sarah released the hold immediately and stepped back, offering her hand to help him to his feet. The gesture demonstrated the same professionalism that Kowalski had shown throughout his career, treating opponents with dignity even in victory. Both warriors recognized the skill that the other had displayed during their brief but intense encounter. The simulation area fell silent as Colonel Martinez's voice echoed through the space. "Exercise complete. Time elapsed, 79 seconds. All objectives achieved by Candidate Chun." The observers in the viewing area erupted in conversation as they processed what they had witnessed. Intelligence officers throughout the facility would be discussing the exercise for months, analyzing how a single person had systematically defeated 4 elite commandos using tactics that weren't covered in any standard military manual. Kowalski gathered his team as they recovered from their defeats, each man processing the experience with the analytical mindset that characterized professional soldiers. Williams rubbed his neck where Sarah's blood choke had controlled him, while Rodriguez checked the electronic sensors that had registered her simulated gunshots. Henderson climbed down from the platform with a thoughtful expression that suggested he was already planning adjustments to his tactical approach. Outstanding work, all of you, Kowalski addressed his team. We just learned more about adaptive combat in 79 seconds than we would have in a month of standard training exercises. Sarah collected her gear with the same quiet efficiency she had displayed throughout the exercise. The transformation from analytical intelligence officer to combat specialist, and back again, demonstrated a versatility that impressed everyone who witnessed it. Her movements showed no trace of fatigue despite the physical demands of the engagement. Colonel Martinez approached her with an expression that combined professional interest with genuine amazement. "Captain Chun, that was the most impressive tactical demonstration I've witnessed in 25 years of military service. Where exactly did you acquire those skills?" "Various sources, sir," Sarah replied diplomatically. "My intelligence assignments have required training in multiple disciplines. I've been fortunate to study with instructors who emphasized adaptability over conventional approaches." The colonel nodded, recognizing that intelligence operatives often possess skills and experiences that weren't documented in their official records. Sarah's performance suggested capabilities that could be valuable in situations where conventional special operations approaches might prove inadequate. "I'm recommending you for immediate inclusion in our advanced tactical program," Martinez announced. "We need officers who can think outside traditional parameters and adapt to unexpected challenges." Sarah accepted the recommendation with quiet satisfaction, knowing that her demonstration had achieved its intended purpose. The intelligence community often needed operatives who could function effectively in direct action scenarios, and her performance had validated training approaches that emphasized mental flexibility over physical dominance. The 4 commandos approached her as the exercise area was being cleared for the next training session. Each man wanted to understand the techniques that had been used against them, recognizing that Sarah's methods could enhance their own tactical capabilities. "That blood choke was textbook perfect," Williams commented with genuine appreciation. "Where did you learn to apply it so smoothly?" "The platform approach was completely outside our observation pattern," Henderson added. "I'd like to study that movement sequence if you're willing to demonstrate it again." Rodriguez nodded his agreement while examining the accuracy of Sarah's simulated gunshots. 2 center mass hits while moving and using cover. "That's exceptional marksmanship under combat conditions." Kowalski stepped forward and extended his hand with the respect due a worthy opponent. "Captain Chun, it's been an honor to train with someone of your caliber. I hope we'll have opportunities to work together in the future." Sarah shook hands with each commando, recognizing the professionalism that allowed them to appreciate skills that had been used against them. Their attitudes demonstrated the qualities that made them elite soldiers, including the ability to learn from defeat and incorporate new knowledge into their tactical approaches. As the exercise concluded and personnel began departing the simulation area, Sarah reflected on the day's events with quiet satisfaction. She had proven that size and strength weren't the only measures of combat effectiveness, and that unconventional approaches could succeed against even the most elite opponents. The 79 seconds that would become legendary throughout the special operations community had demonstrated principles that would influence training programs for years to come. Intelligence officers would receive enhanced combat training, while special operations units would incorporate flexibility and adaptability into their standard tactical doctrine. Colonel Martinez filed his report that evening, recommending significant changes to the facility's evaluation procedures and training methodologies. The performance of Captain Sarah Chun had revealed gaps in conventional thinking about combat effectiveness and tactical assessment. Within weeks, Sarah found herself assigned to a classified program that combined intelligence analysis with direct action capabilities. Her unique skill set made her valuable for operations that required both analytical precision and tactical flexibility, filling a role that traditional military specializations couldn't address adequately. The 4 commandos incorporated lessons from their defeat into their ongoing training, developing new techniques for dealing with unconventional opponents. Their willingness to learn from the experience enhanced their effectiveness and contributed to the evolution of special operations doctrine. Sarah's demonstration had lasting impacts that extended far beyond the single exercise. Military academies began incorporating case studies of the engagement into their curriculum, using it to illustrate principles of tactical adaptation and the importance of mental flexibility in combat situations. The legend of the intelligence officer who defeated 4 elite commandos in 79 seconds became part of military folklore, inspiring countless discussions about the nature of combat effectiveness and the value of unconventional thinking in military operations. The story served as a reminder that true strength came from the combination of physical capability, mental preparation, and the wisdom to use both effectively. The 4 commandos entered the simulation area with textbook precision, their formation spreading out to cover maximum ground while maintaining visual contact with each other. Sergeant Williams took point position, his rifle at the ready as he advanced toward the maze of obstacles where Sarah had disappeared. The confidence in their movements reflected years of successful operations against various opponents. Sarah had vanished into the shadows between 2 shipping containers within seconds of entering the area. She moved with a silence that seemed impossible given the concrete floor, her footsteps making no sound as she positioned herself for the first contact. Her intelligence training had taught her that information gathering was crucial in any confrontation, and she spent precious seconds observing her opponent's patterns of movement. Kowalski coordinated the search from the center of the formation, his voice calm and professional as he directed his team. Williams, check the left container stack. Rodriguez, take the right side barriers. Henderson, monitor R6 and watch for movement on the elevated platform. The team moved with mechanical efficiency, clearing potential hiding spots one by one. Their approach was methodical and thorough, leaving little room for error. Each man trusted his teammates completely, a bond forged through countless training exercises and real-world missions where their lives had depended on that coordination. Sarah watched from her concealed position as Williams approached her hiding spot. She could hear his controlled breathing and the soft scrape of his equipment against the container walls. Her own breathing had slowed to an almost meditative rhythm, a technique she had learned from masters who understood that combat was as much mental as physical. Williams rounded the corner of the container with his rifle raised, expecting to find Sarah pressed against the far wall in a defensive position. Instead, he found empty space. His momentary confusion cost him dearly as Sarah dropped from the container roof above him, her legs wrapping around his neck in a move that combined traditional martial arts with modern combat techniques. The takedown happened in absolute silence. Williams found himself on the ground with Sarah controlling his airway through a blood choke that would render him unconscious in seconds if he didn't submit. His rifle clattered away across the concrete floor, the sound echoing through the simulation area like a gunshot. "Contact!" Rodriguez shouted, spinning toward the sound while trying to identify the threat. He could see Williams down, but Sarah had already moved, using the fallen commando's body as cover while she drew her sidearm. The training rounds she fired struck Rodriguez center mass before he could acquire a target, his electronic sensors immediately registering the hits with a sharp beeping sound. "Two down," Sarah whispered to herself, but she knew the real challenge was just beginning. Kowalski and Henderson were experienced enough to adapt quickly to unexpected situations, and they would now approach her with the caution reserved for legitimate threats. The team leader's voice crackled through their communications system, his previous casualness replaced by sharp focus. "Henderson, establish overwatch from the platform. I'm moving to flank left. Target has proven more capable than briefed." Sarah had already anticipated this tactical adjustment. She moved through the obstacle course like a shadow, using every piece of cover to mask her position while gathering intelligence on her remaining opponents' locations. Her small size allowed her to slip through gaps that would stop larger opponents, giving her access to routes that the commandos couldn't follow. Henderson climbed to the elevated platform with practiced efficiency, his rifle equipped with a scope for long-range observation. From his elevated position, he could see most of the simulation area, making it nearly impossible for Sarah to move without being spotted. His role was to serve as the eyes for Kowalski while the team leader maneuvered for a capture. The tactical situation had shifted dramatically from what the commandos had expected. Instead of cornering a frightened intelligence officer, they found themselves hunting a predator who had already eliminated half their team. The observers in the viewing area leaned forward with growing interest, their casual conversation replaced by intense focus on the action below. Sarah studied Henderson's position from concealment, noting the limited angles from which he could observe certain areas of the simulation space. Her mind calculated distances, timing, and probable reaction speeds with the cold precision that had made her invaluable in intelligence analysis. The skills were the same whether she was studying enemy troop movements from satellite photos or planning her next move in hand-to-hand combat. Kowalski moved through the obstacle course with professional caution, no longer treating this as a routine exercise. His years of experience told him that he was facing someone with legitimate combat skills, not a desk officer playing soldier. He communicated with Henderson through hand signals, coordinating their efforts to box Sarah into an area where superior firepower could overcome her mobility advantages. The team leader's strategy was sound, but it assumed that his opponent would behave according to conventional tactical doctrine. Sarah had learned different lessons from masters who understood that the greatest weapon against superior force was unpredictability combined with perfect timing. She waited until Kowalski was committed to his flanking maneuver before making her move against Henderson. The elevated platform that gave him tactical advantages also isolated him from immediate support. Sarah approached from his blind spot, moving along a route that required her to climb the external structure of the platform itself. Henderson's first indication of danger came when his scope view suddenly went dark. Sarah had thrown her tactical vest over the lens, while simultaneously vaulting onto the platform behind him. Her attack combined speed with precision targeting of pressure points that would disable without causing permanent injury. The fight on the platform lasted less than 10 seconds, but those seconds contained a flurry of movement that demonstrated the difference between textbook combat training and the adaptive fighting style Sarah had mastered. Henderson was larger, stronger, and better armed, but Sarah controlled the engagement by targeting his balance and leverage points while staying inside his reach where his size became a disadvantage. Kowalski heard the brief struggle above him and realized that his overwatch position had been compromised. He was now alone against an opponent who had systematically dismantled his team using tactics that weren't covered in any military manual he knew. The exercise had become a personal challenge that went far beyond the original parameters. "Unknown contact. You have eliminated 3 members of my team," he announced formally. "Identify yourself and surrender for processing." Sarah's response came from a completely different location than where he expected, her voice carrying clearly through the simulation area. "Sergeant Kowalski, you have 37 seconds remaining in your original timeline. Would you prefer to continue or call for backup?" The question revealed that she knew exactly who she was facing and had been tracking the elapsed time throughout the engagement. Kowalski realized that he was dealing with someone who approached combat with the same analytical precision that characterized successful intelligence operations. He keyed his radio to contact the exercise controllers, but found only static. Sarah had somehow disabled the communications system, isolating him completely from outside support. The tactical situation had evolved beyond anything in his experience, and he found himself genuinely uncertain about the outcome for the first time in years. 30 seconds remaining. Sarah's voice came from yet another location, demonstrating mobility that seemed impossible given the limited cover available. Kowalski began to understand that his opponent was using the simulation area in ways that his team hadn't anticipated, exploiting sight lines and movement corridors that they had overlooked during their initial assessment. The team leader made his decision and advanced towards Sarah's last known position with aggressive determination. If this intelligence officer wanted a real fight, he would give her one that would test every skill she claimed to possess. His confidence remained intact despite the tactical reversal, bolstered by years of successful operations and absolute faith in his own capabilities. Sarah watched his approach with growing respect for his persistence and tactical knowledge. Kowalski moved like a true professional, adapting to the changing situation while maintaining the aggressive mindset that had made him successful in actual combat operations. The final confrontation would test both of their abilities to the absolute limit. The observers in the viewing area had grown completely silent, their attention focused entirely on the unfolding drama below. What had begun as a routine evaluation exercise had transformed into something unprecedented in the facility's history. Colonel Martinez found himself leaning forward with intense interest, recognizing that he was witnessing capabilities that could reshape his understanding of what was possible in special operations training. The clock showed 73 seconds elapsed since the exercise had begun. Sarah had neutralized 3 elite commandos and was preparing for a final confrontation with their leader. The outcome would determine not only the success of her evaluation, but also challenge assumptions about combat effectiveness that had guided military thinking for generations. The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training compound as Captain Sarah Chun adjusted her tactical vest one final time. She had been summoned to the Elite Special Operations Command facility for what her commanding officer called an evaluation opportunity. The vague nature of the assignment made her stomach tighten with anticipation. Sarah had spent 8 years climbing through the ranks of the Army's intelligence division, but she knew that whispers followed her everywhere she went. Too small, too young, too much of a desk jockey to handle real field work. At 5 feet 4 inches and barely 130 pounds, she didn't look like the typical special operations candidate. Her slight frame and quiet demeanor had earned her more skeptical glances than respect from her male counterparts. The facility buzzed with activity as various units conducted their morning drills. Sarah watched through the chain-link fence as groups of heavily muscled soldiers ran obstacle courses and practiced combat maneuvers. Their synchronized movements and obvious physical prowess only reinforced her feeling of being an outsider looking in. Colonel Martinez met her at the main gate, his weathered face giving nothing away as he reviewed her personnel file. "Captain Chun," he said without preamble, "you've been recommended for advanced tactical assessment. Your intelligence background is impressive, but we need to see if you can handle yourself in direct action scenarios." They walked through the compound toward a large concrete building that housed the Combat Simulation Center. Other soldiers stopped their activities to stare as they passed. Sarah caught fragments of conversations that made her jaw clench. Intelligence officer playing soldier. Probably never fired a shot outside of qualification. This should be entertaining. Inside the simulation center, Colonel Martinez led her to an observation deck overlooking a large open floor marked with various obstacles, walls, and cover positions. "The scenario is simple," he explained. "4 commandos from our elite rapid response team will attempt to capture you. Your job is to evade or neutralize the threat using any means necessary. No live ammunition, but everything else is fair game." Sarah studied the layout below, her analytical mind automatically calculating angles, sight lines, and potential tactical advantages. The space was roughly 60 feet by 40 feet, with concrete barriers, metal shipping containers, and a raised platform creating a complex maze of potential hiding spots and ambush positions. "The commandos you'll face are among our best," Martinez continued, gesturing to 4 men gearing up in an adjacent room. Through the reinforced glass, Sarah could see them checking their equipment and discussing strategy. Each man stood well over 6 feet tall, with the kind of muscular build that came from years of intensive physical training. Their confident movements and easy camaraderie spoke of countless missions completed together. Staff Sergeant Rick Kowalski, the team leader, had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and 2 in Iraq. His reputation for aggressive tactics and successful captures was legendary throughout the special operations community. Sergeant First Class Mike Rodriguez specialized in close-quarters combat and had never lost a hand-to-hand engagement. Sergeant Danny Williams was known for his speed and agility despite his impressive size. The 4th member, Sergeant Tom Henderson, served as the team's strategic coordinator and was famous for his ability to predict enemy movements. "They've been briefed that this is a standard capture exercise," Martinez explained. "They expect to have you in custody within 2 minutes. Most candidates last about 30 seconds before they're overwhelmed." Sarah nodded, her mind already working through potential scenarios. She had studied these men's files during her preparation for the assignment, though she hadn't expected to face all 4 simultaneously. Their combined experience represented over 40 years of special operations work, and their physical advantages were obvious to anyone with eyes. "What's my objective?" she asked quietly. "Survive for 5 minutes without being captured, or neutralize all 4 opponents," Martinez replied. "The exercise ends when either condition is met or when I determine that safety requires intervention." Below in the preparation area, the 4 commandos finished their equipment checks. They moved with the casual confidence of predators who had never encountered prey that could challenge them. Kowalski gathered his team in a huddle, pointing at a schematic of the exercise area as he outlined their approach. Standard box formation, his voice carried clearly through the observation deck's audio system. Williams takes point, Rodriguez covers the left flank, Henderson monitors the right side. I'll coordinate from center and move to wherever we make contact. This should be over before it starts. The other men chuckled and nodded their agreement. Rodriguez shadowboxed briefly, loosening his shoulders. "Hope she puts up at least a little fight," he said with a grin. "Haven't had a good warm-up all week." Sarah watched their preparations with growing focus. Her years in intelligence had taught her that underestimation could be a powerful weapon when used correctly. She began removing unnecessary items from her gear, keeping only what might prove useful in the coming confrontation. Her sidearm was loaded with training rounds that would register hits on the electronic sensors built into everyone's equipment, but wouldn't cause serious injury. "You have 5 minutes to study the layout and prepare," Martinez announced. "The exercise begins when you enter the simulation area." Sarah spent those 5 minutes memorizing every detail of the space below. She noted the positioning of overhead lights that could create shadows, the placement of security cameras that might create blind spots, and the various objects that could be used as weapons or tools. Most importantly, she observed the patterns of movement from other training exercises, learning how sound carried through the space, and identifying the points where an attacker would be most vulnerable. As her preparation time expired, Sarah felt the familiar calm that always settled over her before important missions. Her intelligence work had involved more dangerous situations than most people realized, including several undercover assignments that had required her to handle hostile contacts without backup. The skills she had developed in those high-stress environments were different from traditional military combat training, but they were no less effective. The 4 commandos took their positions at the main entrance to the simulation area, their formation tight and professional. Each man carried standard special operations gear including tactical rifles, sidearms, and various non-lethal restraint devices. Their movements showed the kind of seamless coordination that only came from extensive training together. Colonel Martinez's voice crackled through the intercom system. "Exercise begins in 30 seconds. All participants confirm ready status." "Team Alpha ready," Kowalski reported crisply. Sarah tested her gear one final time and took her position at the secondary entrance on the opposite side of the simulation area. "Candidate ready," she replied. The countdown began, and Sarah felt her heart rate settle into the steady rhythm she had learned to maintain during high-stress operations. Around the observation deck, various officers and enlisted personnel gathered to watch the exercise. Most wore expressions of polite interest mixed with skepticism about the outcome. 10 seconds, Martinez announced. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, visualizing the layout one more time and finalizing her initial strategy. When she opened them again, her expression had changed completely. The quiet intelligence officer was gone, replaced by someone with hard eyes and predatory awareness. Exercise begins now. The heavy metal door clanged open, and Sarah stepped into the simulation area. Behind the reinforced glass of the observation deck, dozens of military personnel pressed forward to get a better view of what everyone expected to be a very brief and one-sided encounter. What none of them knew was that Captain Sarah Chun had spent the last 3 years training in a very different kind of combat school, learning techniques that weren't taught in any military manual. Her small size and unassuming appearance had allowed her to study under masters who normally refused to teach outsiders. The skills she had acquired were designed specifically for situations where conventional strength and size offered no advantage. The exercise was about to become something that none of the observers, including the 4 confident commandos, were prepared to witness.